Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And I am very happy to be here with you today. Sorry we were a few minutes late, but we had some technical things to deal with. And it's live, so anything can happen. So before we get started with my very special guest, I want to say hi to Amnon, who's
Hello,
busy over there.
Marilyn. How are you?
Amnon, you've been doing really good today.
Well,
You had a lot of things to deal with. So thank you so much for helping me. All right, so here we go. So my guest today is this fantastic Dr. Audrey Evans. And Audrey was born in 1925. She's a pediatric oncologist, and she was known for developing the Evans staging system for neuroblastoma. She is also one of the co-founders of the original Ronald McDonald houses, and she is dressed in her eagle shirt and she's ready to go, but we couldn't get her on the hangout this morning. So you will be privy to hear her, and she is just a ball of fire. And she has done so many things in her life. I spoke with her about a month or so ago, and we just had the most delightful tucking away conversation I think I've ever had. So I want to welcome Audrey to our show. Hey, Audrey.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm very well. I'm frustrated
I
that
know.
we didn't get our show up properly because here I'm dressed up in my Eagles football shirt, and I wanted you to see because it's green, and on the front it says number 1, and on the back it says Dr. Audrey Evans. Now, not many people have a very own proper Eagles T-shirt.
Yeah. So how did you get that shirt?
Well, I have been involved with the football team almost since I came to Philadelphia because we were doing a fundraising event or something with McDonald's and green milkshakes and so forth, so that I got to know Jimmy Murray, who was the business manager for the Eagles team. And so I got to know them, and they were doing a promotion for green milkshakes, and they raised the money for children with cancer. I went to pick up the check for children with cancer, and it was a large check, which of course went to Children's Hospital. And I said to Jimmy, by the way, thank you for $100,000 check, but I need also $35,000 to buy a house in Philadelphia. What do you need a house for? Well, I want a house for families to stay in when they're near the hospital. And so if you hear Jimmy's version of this, he says, of course, can you imagine? You've just given a woman $100,000, and she says, by the way, she needs $35,000 more. But I mean, that's how it went. And so I got both 100, which the hospital swallowed, and then I got my $35,000, and I bought a house in West Philadelphia for families who were visiting the hospital.
Now,
so
how
that
long?
was the first.
How long ago was that, Audrey?
Oh, when I can't think what it was. 50. I think we're nearly 50 years ago, maybe about 48 years ago.
And was that the first ever Ronald McDonald house?
Of course, it was the first ever Ronald McDonald house. Yes.
And so was it whose idea was that?
Who do you think?
You?
Of course.
Wow. So you used to.
I just needed a home away from home, and it caught on. So I think there are now 350 some odd.
So you were actually back in those days. You were actually paying out of your own pocket, right, for families to stay together.
No, not so much that. In the old Children's Hospital before we moved, I could send the men to the dads who were staying overnight to an Armed Forces Institute or whatever those are, and I could send the women to a YWCA, but I couldn't send them anywhere together. So I said, I explained to him what I needed. I needed a house where I can send mums and dads together near the hospital while their child was being treated, and so that's how it happened.
Wow. And so how did it come up with the name?
Well, I think when we were discussing it, and it was looking as I was having, so that then there was another promotion so they gave me the money, not for the house. They gave me the money for the hospital, which got swallowed. And then when they were coming up for the promotion test, they were doing a green milkshakes with McDonald's. They were promoting that. So when Jimmy asked them, do you want to give this money to her? They said, well, can we call it the Ronald McDonald House? I said, I don't care what you call it. Just give me the house. So they gave me the house, or they gave me the money for the house, and they called it the Ronald McDonald House. And that has, because it has such a nice connotation. Everybody in the world practically knows what a McDonald's is, and it's a nice place. You get something to eat, and it's warm, and it's nice. So now they had a home near the hospital, which was where Ronald was.
Wow. So you have done so many things in your career. What is the one thing that stands out for you in your career? Is it the Ronald McDonald House? Was it your practice in oncology, pediatric oncology? What was it?
Well, probably the medical work, because when my husband, Dan Danju, and I finally landed together after a few different moves at Children's in Philadelphia, we set up a program for treating children with cancer. And so between the two of us, I think that is what I really care about, the cure rate. And it wasn't all ours, of course. The cure rate for children with cancer went from something like 25% to, I don't know what it is, 85% perhaps. So we made a wonderful difference in the survival rate of children with cancer.
Mm.
And also, I think we put on the map, you can't treat a few children this way and then a few children that way, and then you think, why don't we do this? Or you have to, if you're putting children on a study, I mean, if you're trying to do something and finding out what your treatment is going to work, you have to do it in a well-organized study, which you probably can't do in one hospital. So you have to gather together your colleagues and friends and now all over the world to say, you think it's best to use X, we think it's best to use Y, and maybe for some children, we don't have to treat anything except just the surgery. So why don't we do a study? So Dan particularly was a leader in cooperative group studies to finding out if A was better than B, how much better was it, and can we now do B versus C?
And you met in the hospital, right? You were both working together. Is that correct?
You should ask him how we met.
Bring him on. Is he there? Dan, is it Dan there?
Yeah, but he's not here. Yes, he is.
Well,
I'll tell you what he did.
Yeah, tell me.
He was sitting in this is the Children's Hospital of Boston. And he came down to his office because I had called him to say I wanted to talk to him. We were sort of colleagues, but we didn't know each other very well. So I went to his office. He wasn't there, so I paged him. He said, okay, I'll come. So when he arrives in his office, there is Audrey sitting at my computer reading my mail. And he thought that was pretty, I don't know what. So I've read this mail ever since, and we've worked together ever since then, and we had a very good partnership. We were in different hospitals and different places. We ended up in Philadelphia together, where it was much easier. And so he was more of an organizer than I was. I was more of a caretaker. And we just did marvelous study after study, so that with trying to do the least damage, we found out how we could do the most good.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, any type of chemotherapy to kill cancer cells kills other cells. It probably goes after any other cell that is growing and dividing, like your blood cells start with young ones, and then they grow older, and so all the cells in your body are turning over. So cancer practically has an effect on almost any of these cells. So you have to try and limit and focus your drug on the cancer cell and do the minimum amount of damage. And so to do that, you have to organize a study with enough patients to get your answer, and then treat them according to the protocol and come up with the analysis of what you did.
So it really is important to have a team when you're working
yes.
in that condition, isn't it?
Well, you need more than doctors. You need technicians to see that whatever things you need are collected. Certainly for oncology, you need social workers to hold the hands of the people that were going through this. You needed a big team.
Mm-hmm. So, and why pediatrics? Why children?
Well, I think pediatricians are more malleable and more caring for each other. Somebody who knows exactly what you have to do with somebody with lung cancer isn't going to get anybody to tell him, why don't you do this or that? He knows what to do. He's a big cheese. He knows what to do. So he's not going to get you to do anything else. But pediatricians are much easier going. And they said, okay, well, why don't we try and do that? So it was, and pediatric surgeons and radiation therapists, like radiation therapists know that they can cure cancer cells. And of course, they don't bother too much about they're getting killing other cells too. So, but anyhow, pediatric surgeons, radiation therapists, and chemotherapists are more, I don't know, I shouldn't say they're more friendly, but they are friendly, and they're quite prepared to do a study and find out what they think they're doing is right.
It really does make perfect sense. I mean,
it does.
It does, without having experienced it myself. I mean, certainly having children and so forth. I mean, pediatricians seem to, you have to listen more as a pediatrician because your patient isn't really telling you very much.
Right.
And
you have to talk to his mom and his dad and maybe his school teacher, and you have to figure out what's the best to do for the child.
Wow. And you did all of that.
Yes. We were ones who felt it was very important to include social workers, because I think it was Dan's idea that a sick child creates a sick family, because there's too much focus on the one child and the other kids get left behind. So you have to think, you should treat a whole family, decide what's best for everybody.
And what was the
and one of the great leaders of all this, or one of the first people who said you have to have a team of people, it was Sidney Farber in Boston. He was a pathologist, actually. So he was looking at slides and saw some slides of somebody and thought, well, those cells are growing, and something about the cells, I think they'd been affected. Dan. He can't hear me. Somebody was looking at the slides and saw these slides had less activity in them than not, and he looked back to find out that actually they had been affected by nitrogen mustard, which is a poison. So he said, well, I wonder if we could figure out how to give a sort of nitrogen mustard to the bone marrow to stop these cells growing. So it's much more complicated than that, but it gradually grew. So Sidney Farber in Boston was one of the people who said, okay, let's try this or let's try that, and started, I think, what's called the total care of children with cancer and how to organize the best treatment and how to understand what you got in the results of your treatment.
And so who was you? So you began your work in the 50s, right?
Yes.
So, and who was your?
No, probably the 60s.
Okay, then who was your mentors? Who did you study?
Well, I was in Boston for, I think, almost 10 years. I went to medical school there. Then I worked at the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh and worked a little bit as a student on the floor, and saw how people were taking care of them. And we allowed clergy were allowed to come on the floor and have services, and they were allowed to visit their families. And somehow or other, I got involved in I was a surgical resident, and I got involved in the day where in Boston, in Edinburgh, you took one pair of wards took 1 day a week, and they took all the casualties. And I was working in the ER from our floor, looking at what was coming in. And I worked with the sister there, who was Roman Catholic, and she welcomed Roman Catholic priests to her floor. And I saw what a good effect they had generally. And I said, well, we need priests on all the floors. We need different ways to help people get through this. And so from that, the medicals, the women's and the nursing staff and the social workers and the priests and everybody had a part in treating a whole family as one unit.
That's just the foresight that you had, the insight that you had, the knowing, the listening that you have is so magnificent and extraordinary.
Well, I was in church one day, and somebody was talking in the sermon, and somehow or other I suddenly heard in the sermon, why did I come to the United States? And it wasn't just as a pediatrician taking care of such children with cancer. It was what to do about children who were dying, who were going to die, and you knew they were going to die. And so I had an ability, or I somehow was given the ability to talk to children about dying. I mean, nobody did. It was awful to do that, so you couldn't possibly do that. You just said, oh, well, you're going to go up. One of the ones in Boston was you're going to go to the 18th floor. Well, there was no 18th floor, and the kids knew there was no 18th floor, so they knew what that meant. But you couldn't talk about it. So I learned that probably you should be able to discuss that. So I talked with children a little bit about heaven. There was another place. It wasn't only this earth. There was another place called heaven, and it was quite fun. Oh, what's it like? Oh, well, it's like whatever you want. So I had wonderful discussions about what heaven would be like. And I said, it's whatever you want. Well, can I take my bongo drums? Of course you can take your bongo drums. And I can play them in heaven. Oh, yes, of course you can play your bongo drums. And oh, well, that was going to be lovely. And so talking about death, if you think it's going to happen, is better than pushing it under the rug. Particularly if you yourself have a vision that there is a place called heaven, and it's a nice place, and you meet your old friends, and so that you can give them a vision and let them create their own vision. and I can come. Can you come? Well, if I'm in heaven, can I come back and see my mum? Yes, you can come back and see your mum. She'll know you're there. She can't actually hear what you're saying, but she will know you're there, and she'll be very happy that you've come back to see her. Oh, that's going to be good, right?
So Audrey, the gift that you have, this insight that you have about heaven, did you always have that?
Well, yeah, I always had a strong religious background. I mean, I was brought up in a Christian family, so I knew that I said my prayers to my mother every night. First, she would say the prayers. Then, as I got a bit older, I could say the first verse of my prayer, Jesus, tender shepherd, hear me. And then, so I knew there was a heaven. I knew there was a Jesus. I didn't know so much about God. I knew there was a Jesus. So I had this marvelous argument with my mother when I think I was 5. I was saying what I wanted to wear for church tomorrow, and we were getting ready for bed. So she said, "No, Audrey, you can't wear that for church. It isn't right." I said, "How do you mean it isn't right?" She said, "Well, it's not the right thing for church." I said, "God doesn't he doesn't care what I wear to church. He sees me all the time. He sees me in the bath, so he could care less what I wear." So she said, "Well, right. Oh, well, we'll let that one go." And, I'm sure God doesn't care what I wear in church.
You have such a way of making life so full and fun, and special. You have this knack for just, I mean, everything you look at, I think, has a fullness to it, whether it's life, death, whatever it is. Friendship, right?
Right.
I just love your whole being. And we have a question on the chat that I want to ask you from Chris. And I want to suggest that for all of you out there, if you would love this opportunity to chat with Audrey, this is a great time. Whatever the question is, she's got an answer. So please feel free to call us at 919-518-9778, or you can connect with us on Skype, and that is computers, the number 2, K Voice, anytime you want, or you can come into our chat. So here's the question. What do you think about the new research using the body's own immune system to fight cancer?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's so perfect, because anything you use as a chemotherapy or surgery affects normal tissues as well as malignant tissues. If you can figure anything out, either something that only affects a cancer cell, or telling the body this is something you shouldn't have, and if I can influence your immune system for you to kill it yourself, that would be very important, because probably it doesn't have much in the way of side effects, because the only thing it's doing is telling the body to do this. And if you can learn how to tell the body genetically, do this and kill a cancer cell, it doesn't have, I may be all wrong, it doesn't have much in the way of side effects, which chemotherapy has bad effects because it doesn't know exactly what it's focusing on. So this is focused, pinpoint treatment.
So is there a time in a patient's history, life, that they've used chemotherapy too much, and then going into something else, it's too late? Is that a possibility?
Oh, well, I think too much chemotherapy can be lethal. So, I mean, yes, well, two ways. One, too much chemotherapy at the time, if the dose is wrong or something like that, then it can be lethal. Also, chemotherapy mostly focused on growing cells. And so even older people still have cells like your nails grow and your skin grows and your, I don't know what else grows. But so
hair?
In your hair grows, right? Yes, you certainly do
your
with your hair
stomach,
with a good dose
and
of
your
chemotherapy.
Your weight grows?
Yes, right. So chemotherapy, unless it's focused on a specific thing, either on a specific cell only or focusing on another cell to jazz it up to say, by the way, you go for that one. So yes, the more specific chemotherapy or treatment can be, the better.
So tell us what the Evans staging system is.
Well, that's no big deal. I mean, it gets into my bio, but it isn't a big deal. Basically, it was, and I was working on a study of a certain tumor called neuroblastoma, and it was an interesting tumor because it had different effects. So that if you have a localized tumor, and without doing any damage, you can take it out, you've probably won. And if you have a localized tumor, you have to decide where it is. So if I can't get it all out, what do I have to do next? So you might do a little bit of focused radiation therapy. And if it's, hold on a moment. Sorry. And if it's widespread, then you have to use systemic chemotherapy. And so you have to decide, can I do less or can I use focused treatment? Hold on.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Do you need to get some water, Audrey?
No, but I'm going to have another good cough. Hold on.
Okay.
I think it's gone now.
Okay.
Right. So limit if you're using poisons, they're all poisons, limit them to only affect one cell. Then if you kind of figure out a way to tell the cell, you are growing in that direction, which is the wrong one, go in this direction, giving it a specific message, then of course it's much better because you're not affecting any other cells.
So if you were to do anything now, would you have done anything different, or we enter into any different field of medicine?
I doubt it, because I think my skills were empathy rather than brains. I was a woman who cared. And so that was the skill I could bring with other people who could do other things, like my husband did radiation therapy, and he killed tumor cells. And he also knew, try not to do as much more damage than you have to. So he was very good at, because he was a pediatric radiation therapist, he was as good as I was as trying to limit the bad of what you do and maximize the good.
You are so amazing. I mean, you're humble and real.
Well, I hope I'm real.
You're
I
real.
don't know about being humble.
You're humble and real. I mean, and it's, you were a great mediator of resources. You listen, and maybe you didn't know it all, but you knew that more heads were better than one. More hearts were better than one.
Right. Well, and I did have, I had my pediatric oncology work. Then I had McDonald House, which was sort of by accident we started. We never thought it would go there. But, how to take care of children more than by chemotherapy. So the place to stay. And so McDonald House is a huge program. It only could have worked to have a huge organization like McDonald's that is all over the world, who say, that's not a bad thing. Why don't we do those? So that's great too. And now in the work that I do in St. James School in North Philadelphia, that's much more limited and focused. But it's just great. We started as a Christian school in North Philadelphia that has the worst gun violence in the United States. And most of the children who came to our school were brought up by adopted grandmothers. So, so that was wonderful because here we are, a group of people trying to do a good job in education, but in the same concept of total care. Are they hungry? Are they homeless? Are they exercised? Are they healthy? So total care in taking care of a child at a school in North Philadelphia. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's really and truly, it's total care, total holistic
Right,
is the only thing, I mean, that works really.
right,
I mean, it
right.
makes perfect sense to me.
It's very expensive. I can't tell. I mean, no way could a public school system do what we do for children because I can't. I'm not even going to tell you what it costs per child. There's no way a public system could afford that. We just pour the money in.
Yeah, but isn't it? Would the public system be able to afford it if the public system only did that?
No,
And
we couldn't.
it couldn't. But I
We
mean,
couldn't.
it costs
No.
us so much money in the long run when when kids are roaming the streets, get into crime. If you take all of those aspects of what goes on and you poured it into education.
Well, it's difficult to think that people could get that insight. You know, I mean, the like half. I mean, education. I think public education is paid by the taxes that people who pay to their state and their government. I mean, that's where the money comes from. So I don't know,
Hmm.
and they don't want to pay more taxes.
Hmm.
So I think if you decided to run a proper, wonderful school system, you'd have to pay more taxes. And I think people, I'm not terribly interested in North Philadelphia. No,
Hmm.
I live in Bryn Mawr, and I have to spend enough in Bryn Mawr on the roads and whatever.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. So, what do you do now? And how long has it been since you are basically retired from?
I
Um,
don't know when I retired. I don't think I have.
I don't
So
think
let
you
me
have
think.
either.
No, what do I do now? I say to my husband every morning, "Is this a nothing day?" He says, "No. You have a board meeting at so and so. You have to do an interview at that. You have to." So I complain, and I love it. I just think, "Oh, I can't do all that," and then and if nobody ever called me to do something, I'd say, "What's wrong? What have I done?"
Well, you know what? You today. I couldn't think of a better guest to have on my show today than you, and it's my birthday.
Oh, happy
Thank
birthday!
you, and I get to celebrate it with you.
Yes, isn't that lovely?
It
Let me think.
is.
What can you have? What can I send you for a
Oh,
birthday?
no, no, but you and I are gonna. You and I, when I come up to Pennsylvania in the next couple of months, you and I are gonna have a special lunch,
Oh yes,
right?
are you coming?
I am gonna come, and you're
Oh,
gonna take me,
lovely.
and you're gonna take me for tea.
Well, I think we should do lunch at Park down the road.
Okay, wherever you say, I'm coming.
Lunch. We'll go lunch at Park. My
Okay.
treat.
All right. I want to see your home because I know that it's.
Oh, it's lovely.
I
It's
know.
gorgeous.
Can you tell us a little
And
bit?
my birds.
Tell us about your birds and your home.
Well, our home. We were very lucky. We just landed in it by mistake. I lived in a row house on Spruce Street.
Good.
A 3-story basement attic house, and we decided that I can't remember what that it was too much. It was ridiculous running a house like that, and so we came into Philadelphia. Or Dan was looking with me. Um, he was still married to Jean then, but anyhow, he was a good friend, and he was looking around. And we came to this particular apartment building in Philadelphia. And we said, "Do you have anything there?" "Oh no, we never have anything." And then somebody there at the office said, "Wait a minute, Mr. Jones, or whatever his name was, is going to be leaving in." I think we asked for a 3-bedroom apartment, so they don't have any 3-bedroom apartments. I think so. Mr. Jones is leaving in a few weeks' time. So she said, "Can you wait?" I said, "Oh yeah, we can wait. All right." Well, you should go up and see Mr. Jones' apartment. Other girl up there said, they don't have to go and see it. Just tell them to take it. We said, well, maybe we'd like to glance at it. So we have this gorgeous apartment. The building is a big building at the back with two arms. The arms stop at 17. So we have 18 and the roof of the arm that stopped at 17. So we have a sizable roof with trees, a couple of fountains, deck chairs when the weather's nice, and we have at the moment a large group of finches, boy and girl finches, about 6 or 7, well, we may even have about 7 pairs, so that's 14 finches. So they sleep somewhere else. They sleep around the corner and down the street. But they spend the day with us. They're on the trees. They are given seed, hanging seed feeders, hot and cold baths. Well, a cold bath, they have cold. Actually, they're both getting pretty cold. So they drink in the bath water, unfortunately. And anyhow, and so they spend the day here and have food, water, leisure, trees. It's just perfect for them. Unfortunately, they go somewhere in the south for the winter, to, I guess, lay eggs and have babies. So I'm not going to see any babies, which is probably a good thing, because how are we going to get them off? Well, how are we going to get the babies off when they're learning to fly?
But they come back and they come back to you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we're going to do that. But so I'm glad they go away and have the babies. Then they come back again next year.
So here's another question for you, which is a really great question. What was it like being a female doctor back in the 50s, 60s, 70s? What was it like?
Oh, the 50s. Well, do you have half an hour?
We have some time.
I have a great talk about women who made it in the world of men. And it's a pretty good group of women who made it in the world of men. So medical school was limited mostly to men. The University of Edinburgh took 10% of each class were women, and they were rather far-seeking to take women at all. When I came along, it was, I guess, pretty much the same. But my sister was already in medical school, so I could sort of follow her around a little bit and get in partly by the back door. So I got in when she was a resident there and working. So I would go to what she was doing, and I could watch things, and then I finally got to help a little bit somehow. I can't remember how. So obviously I wanted to go to medical school, and the person whom my parents met there, who was my sister's guru, said, don't, my parents said, we don't want her to be a doctor because we think that's too much for her. She's had too many problems in growing up with tuberculosis and things like that. And so we think she should be a nurse. He said, if she wants to be a doctor, let her be a doctor. Well, no, she can make it, we'll manage. So I became a doctor. I became a medical student there, and I worked all of my way through. I worked, I think, for about 10 years at the Royal Infirmary in Edinburgh at various capacities. And part of that was pretty funny, too, because when I first went as a house officer at the Royal Infirmary, there were 6 women and the rest were men. This is just at the end of the war, and the men were starting coming back. So as the men started coming back, the posts were filled, of course, by men, and the women got fewer and fewer. So we ended up, finally there were 2 women. So we were given our own little sitting room, and we were fed our supper in the sitting room. And that was fine. We didn't care what the men did. We had a great time. Then there was only one. So then the men said, she has to go. We can't have her in the mess, like an army mess. And so I explained to the people who ran the place, well, where am I going to go? And they said, well, you can. There are rooms for staff over on the medical side. I said, I can't be over on the medical side when I happen to be the only neurosurgical resident, and it's about 20 minutes to get from one to the other. And I said, my boss says I can't sleep there, and I have to sleep in Sister's suite on the floor. Sister's the head nurse. So I said, and Sister doesn't want me anyhow. So I went to the general to explain this problem. Not the general, what was it? The superintendent of the hospital, which happened to be an Indian Army general. So you can imagine what he was like. So I explained this. So he said, well, there are two residence rooms up the tower. There was a tower of something between the two big wings. He said, there's two residence rooms up there. So I guess you could sleep up there, and that's not so far. It's half the way. So I said, okay. So if you wanted to have any unseen activities, put one boy and one girl resident up a tower together, all by themselves. However, we were much too busy for things that you think we should not do. The only problem was all the locks were taken off the bathroom doors. So when I went down my tower steps and rounded into the bathrooms, I had to sing in the bathroom to tell people I was in there.
Oh my goodness. Well, that leads me to one of the next questions. Is why
about bathrooms?
No, this is about why did you want to be a doctor over a nurse?
Well, I don't know, because now my sister's a doctor by now, and I thought they had more fun. And it was more exciting to be a doctor.
Okay.
Because I'd been exposed to my sister's colleagues, and they seemed to have a great time. So I said, no, I want to be a doctor.
Gotcha. All right, now we have to for just a moment, talk about how long have you been married to Dan?
Oh, not long.
I know.
Wait a minute. Let's see if he's awake. Hold on. Dan? No, he's asleep. About, I think it's not quite 10 years.
And this is your first
Dan,
marriage,
are you awake?
right?
Dan? When did we get married?
What?
When did we get married?
February 1st, 2005.
2005.
Okay. So
and I was born
13.
in 25.
So that's you're married 13 years.
No, that's not it. Oh, yes,
right?
Okay, 13 years, right.
And he's your first husband, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you dated for a while before that?
No. We've worked together for 40 years. We knew each other pretty well.
So you were like 80 years old.
No, wait a minute. I did more than that. I was the sort of extra aunt to his family. So he had two sons, and the boys, the two sons, one was a priest and one is a doctor. They traveled with me for years. In the summers, I gathered a group. Every summer, I set up an exciting summer trip, which would be maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, a long summer trip. And then I would invite my friends' children that were apparently prepared to let me go. And the children would all say, oh, yeah, we'll go with you. And so we traveled all over the world. We traveled to at least 3 Olympics. We traveled to the Caribbean. We dived. We rode horses. We just had a great time. And mostly people would say, okay, you can take my kids. And so off we would go, and I would travel with probably 4 kids.
And whose kids were these?
2 kids were Dan's.
Okay.
And one of my friends in Boston, her daughter who died. And I think they were the kids of my friends. And of course, the kids thought it was just wonderful because it was a very different life from what they led at home. And So and the parents were said, well, okay, yes, all right. So you can have the kids. So for at least 2 weeks we had a summer holiday, and I had a bunch of kids walking, riding horses in Wyoming, swimming in the Caribbean, going to Olympics in China.
Wow.
I can't remember. All over the place.
So you were 80 years old when you and Dan got married. About
correct.
And
correct.
And what was that wedding like? What was your wedding like?
Somewhat limited. We went to mass at 6:30 in the morning. No, yes. We were married at 6:15 in the morning with my friend from Boston and the rector's wife, who were my bridesmaids, I suppose. Nobody was dressed as bridesmaid. And so, and then we were married then, and then we went across the street to something like a Starbucks. We had a wedding breakfast across the street. Then I don't know where those two went, but we went to work, and we were at work by 8 o'clock in the morning. It certainly cuts down on the expenses. Our expense was a license and Starbucks coffee or something like that. It's very inexpensive.
What an extraordinary life you have led.
A fun life.
So you know, there's so much to your life, and you could so easily have gone down the dark road with what you did. I mean, the kind of work you did. I mean, it's hard to do.
Yeah, I was given something.
Yes, you were.
To carry that, right.
Yes, you were. When you look back now, what was it that you were given? Because, a lot of people.
I was given it from God.
I know. What was it?
So I was given the ability or the whatever.
Because I feel very strongly that I've been given something. And I don't, because, I listen and I do things that I can't even imagine that I am doing, or that I know something that I can't even imagine that I know. Or I find myself in places with people like you that I can't even imagine how in my wildest do I have this opportunity to talk to you. How in the world?
Who knows?
Who knows? But you used your gift. You were given this gift, and you rose to the occasion, and you used it as it was given to you, for what it was given to you for.
Correct.
And you don't look
at...
So
I was just very fortunate. I was given a mission, and I was given the ability to carry it out. And let me say, I was fortunate in having loving parents. So I knew what that sort of love could be like. I had loving parents. I had a good education. For part of the time I went to Quaker school. So I was just given good roots.
Thank you for saying that. Today is one of those days that for me, having it be my birthday, and I turned 64 today. So it's the day that I sit in a bit of reflection.
Right.
Were
you given a good upbringing?
Yes.
Yes. Lucky you.
Yes, I was. My parents were. You knew they loved us. My mother, thank God, is still alive. She's 92, and she's a twin, and she's amazing. She's playing canasta today. My brothers call for my birthday. I have a wonderful family, an extended family. My daughter took me out for breakfast. Yeah, I'm surrounded by love, and it's being with you today is intensified the reflection, because it's so easy to just go about your day and not reflect on those gifts. And
right.
and it's good to be reminded and to feel them,
Right.
right?
So this is your birthday?
Yes, today is my
Oh,
birthday.
happy birthday.
Are you going to sing to me?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. I can do it.
And your birthday is when? Tell me when your birthday is.
The 6th of March.
The 6th of March. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, my brother is March 4th. Yeah, my brother is March 4th, huh? Yeah, different year, but my brother's
Mine's the 6th, right. And I will be in Edinburgh at the time.
Oh, you will?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to Edinburgh on a nice trip. I'm being given an honorary degree from the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh, with a cap and a gown and all sorts of frills like that. And then I'm going to further north in Scotland to my Scottish family that I've been with since I was 12. And then I come down through England to my nephew and his family, and then to London for my another nephew. And so I'm just having a gorgeous trip. I'll be away about, I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks, and then you'll be back.
Then we'll be back, yes.
Terrific. So I'm going to connect with you and let you know when I'm going to be there. And
oh, yes.
And
we'll go. I'll take you out.
Yes, I'm counting on it.
Yeah, good.
I want to.
That would be lovely.
It will be very lovely. I want to see your home. I want to meet the man. I want to meet the man, Dan.
Yes, the man, Dan. You should, right?
Dan's a very special man as well.
He is.
He
very
is
special. Anybody putting up with me, right?
Well, you both have a lot of life in you, and opinions, true, and history and knowledge.
And we've done good work.
You've
used our lives well.
You did. You used your life well together. Before each other and together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful. When you look back, is there anything that you look back and the first thing that comes to your mind and you say yes?
About what?
About anything in your life. Anything.
I usually go back to the most important thing was my parents and their upbringing. To be based on that and to be given a strong Christian background, that's enough for anybody to lead a good life. Loving parents and a good, I don't know, I guess you could be a Buddhist or whatever. To have a belief that there is something that you're supposed to be doing. You've been given a job to do.
Right, yeah, and I guess part of that is knowing that you matter. When you are loved, you know you matter. And when you matter, then you know that you're meant for something. So hold on one second. Angie on our chat is saying her birthday is March 2nd. So we have a bunch of birthdays. So we're going to say happy birthday to Angie too. But before we end, I just want to remind everyone of eye contact that I personally am using for my newsletter. And it's great. I used it last week for the first time because I've been scared. And I've been using it. And let me tell you what, I have a personal friend over there. He knows me well, and he's been hand-holding with me. So it's great. And you can use Breaking Free as your code, and you can get a free month, and you can get $25 off your registration if you're interested. It's great. It was cheaper than what I was using, and I love it. So I'm just highly recommend that you use it if you're interested. And also I'm doing a publishing class. Anybody, it's a 4-month class. I'd love to have you sign up if you have any interest in publishing. It is free, and it is in collaboration in conjunction with Microsoft. So give me a holler at Marilyn at MarilynShannon.com, and we can talk about it. Audrey, did you watch in our final moment? Did you watch the game last night?
Oh, did I watch the game? And that's why I'm so sorry we're not on Skype, because I'm wearing my Eagles T-shirt. I have a wonderful Real Eagles T-shirt, which is on the front it says a number 1, and on the back it says Dr. Audrey Evans. So it's a Real Eagles T-shirt. So I wore it last night with pride.
Well, would you do me a favor? Will you have somebody take a picture of you, and then we're going to post that picture?
Okay, I'll certainly do that.
Will you do that? That would be wonderful. We're going to post it on Facebook and everywhere and show everybody who you are and what we didn't get to see today.
All right, I'll do that. Right.
Well, it has been just such an honor to have the opportunity to have spoken to you twice. Right? The first time?
Fun.
It was fun. And you are just a delightful person, and I am so honored to have gotten to know you.
It was great, right. And we'll see each other again.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. And for all of you out there, thank you so much for being here today. And before we go, I just want to remind you also about my book. Amnon is so good because he remembers. In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Men. I have great stories in there about men, their personal stories that they have shared in their words. So the stories are raw and real. And my next book, which will be coming out soon, is In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Twins. Look, I am all about people getting to see and know and feel people. And that's what my books are about. So, Audrey, I love you so much. I'm so glad to have this opportunity with you and everybody out there. Thanks so much for being here with us today, and have a wonderful day. And my parting words to you are, take a look in and look at your gifts. We all have them. Live them. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.